In 1940, Hermann Goering, head of the Luftwaffe, scoffed at the idea that America could influence the outcome of the war in Europe. All they can build are refrigerators and razor blades, he sneered, dismissing an industrial powerhouse he had never fully understood. Across the Atlantic, the United States seemed, at least to foreign eyes, a nation focused on consumer goods rather than war machines. Factories churned out automobiles, home appliances, and basic tools, while the idea of producing thousands of heavy bombers seemed unimaginable. Yet beneath the surface, a quiet revolution was stirring. American engineers and industrialists were beginning to grasp a vision that would transform not just a nation, but the course of the war itself. Detroit, Michigan, the heart of American manufacturing, became the focal point for this transformation. Henry Ford, whose name had become synonymous with mass production, envisioned a factory unlike anything the world had ever seen. It would be massive, built under one enormous roof, capable of producing aircraft at a speed that would shock the Axis powers. In hotel rooms far from the future site, Ford's engineering executive, Charles Sorensen, sketched the initial plans on napkins, unaware that these casual diagrams would lay the foundation for the largest factory in the world at the time. These sketches were more than doodles. They were the seeds of a manufacturing miracle that would outpace everything Germany could muster. The challenge was staggering. 42,000 workers would have to be recruited, trained, and organized. The site chosen was nothing but open farmland, miles of fields where tractors once plowed the soil. Within months, construction crews began pouring concrete, erecting steel, and installing an assembly line that would stretch longer than any that had ever existed. Yet, even as construction progressed, doubts were everywhere. Could Americans truly transition from building cars to building complex heavy bombers? The early experiments were humiliating. Mechanics and engineers would test aircraft components only to have them fail repeatedly. The phrase, "Will it run?" became a whispered question, a challenge that haunted the first months of production. Despite the setbacks, Edsel Ford, Henry's son and president of the company, insisted on pushing forward. Battling his own terminal illness, Edsel poured energy into the project, meeting with engineers, overseeing operations, and defending the ambitious schedule against skeptics. He understood something crucial. This was more than a factory. It was a symbol of American resolve, an answer to the question of whether democracy could marshal its industry to defeat tyranny. Every beam of steel, every conveyor belt, and every bolt was part of a larger plan to turn potential into power, to convert ingenuity into an unstoppable force. As 1941 approached, whispers of what Willow Run could become began circulating in Washington and among military planners. If Americans could harness this kind of industrial output, it could change the very nature of war. Goering's dismissive remarks now seemed dangerously short-sighted. Across the ocean, the seeds of a challenge that would terrify Germany were quietly being planted in the heart of Michigan. What started as farmland and sketches on napkins was about to become the beating heart of the arsenal of democracy, a place where ambition, engineering, and human determination would collide to create an industrial legend. The story of Willow Run is not just about machines or factories. It is about vision and audacity. It is about seeing possibilities where others see limitations. In the summer of 1940, the world laughed at America's supposed softness, yet inside workshops and planning rooms, the Americans were already preparing a challenge no enemy could ignore. They were building more than bombers. They were building a future where industry itself would become a weapon. And the first chapter of that story begins here, in a quiet, unassuming corner of Michigan, where nothing existed, yet everything was about to change. By 1942, the vision of Willow Run was no longer just a sketch on a napkin. It was a sprawling construction site where Michigan farmland was being transformed into the largest factory under one roof in history. The scale of the project was staggering.
Steel beams stretched across acres of land, concrete floors were poured at a pace that seemed impossible, and every day thousands of workers arrived to witness a landscape changing faster than anyone could imagine. The clock was ticking. The United States was entering the war, and the demand for heavy bombers was urgent. Every delay threatened to give Germany more time to strengthen its defenses. The factory was more than just a building. It was a mechanical puzzle. Engineers had to design assembly lines that could handle aircraft as complex as the B-24 Liberator, a plane that weighed over 65,000 pounds and contained thousands of parts. Early attempts were chaotic. Parts were misplaced, workers stumbled over new processes, and planes often failed initial tests. The phrase, "Will it run?" became both a question and a taunt. Each failure, though discouraging, became a lesson. Engineers refined processes, reorganized workflows, and experimented relentlessly. Slowly, chaos gave way to a rhythm that promised something extraordinary. Recruiting and training a workforce of 42,000 people was an equally monumental challenge. Men and women from all walks of life poured into Willow Run, many with little experience in aviation. The real-life Rosie the Riveter, Will Monroe, emerged as a symbol of determination, working tirelessly on the assembly line, showing that dedication and skill could overcome any obstacle. Workers faced grueling schedules, long shifts, and intense physical labor, yet morale was high. They knew they were part of something bigger than themselves. Each bolt tightened, each panel assembled, each engine mounted, brought them closer to changing the course of the war. Edsel Ford, despite battling terminal illness, remained a relentless presence. He moved through the factory floors, encouraging workers, solving bottlenecks, and defending the ambitious timelines against skeptical military officials. He understood that Willow Run was not just a factory, but a strategic weapon. Every decision mattered. Every improvement in efficiency meant another plane that could take to the skies and strike at the heart of Germany. The pressure was immense, yet it fueled innovation. Conveyor belts were redesigned, assembly procedures refined, and even minor improvements were implemented immediately, creating a culture of continuous advancement. By the end of 1942, Willow Run had survived its first real test. The factory had moved beyond the embarrassing early failures, and the assembly line began producing functional aircraft at a pace never before imagined. The dream of a bomber per hour still seemed distant, but the foundation was laid. The massive structure, once just farmland, had become a hive of coordinated effort, a machine itself, powered by human ingenuity and determination. It was clear that American industry was beginning to rival anything Germany could produce. The transformation of Willow Run was more than physical. It represented a shift in mindset, a declaration that America would meet the demands of total war. Where once Goering had mocked the United States as a maker of refrigerators and razors, the foundations of a facility capable of producing thousands of heavy bombers were being cemented. Every girder, every conveyor, every worker's hand contributed to a growing confidence that what seemed impossible was in fact within reach. Willow Run was not just a factory, it was a symbol of resilience, vision, and the remarkable ability of a nation to mobilize against adversity. As the sun set over the sprawling factory, the hum of construction and the clatter of tools created a rhythm of progress. It was a rhythm that promised an American industrial miracle, one that would soon terrify the enemy. Willow Run was no longer just a plan, it was becoming a force of history, ready to demonstrate the full might of the arsenal of democracy. Inside Willow Run, the factory was no longer just steel and concrete. It was a living, breathing engine powered by 42,000 people. Men and women poured in from every corner of the country, many leaving their homes for the first time to work in an aircraft plant. The war demanded more than machines. It demanded human ingenuity, resilience, and courage. Among the countless workers, one woman became an icon of determination, Will Monroe, the real-life Rosie the Riveter. She embodied the spirit of every American contributing to the war effort, showing that skill and dedication could transform raw materials into weapons of democracy. Rose and her fellow workers faced challenges unlike any they had encountered before. Many had never touched an aircraft part in their lives, yet they were expected to assemble bombers that would fly thousands of miles into enemy territory. The work was physically exhausting, repetitive, and precise, and mistakes could cost lives. Yet morale was high, fueled by a shared understanding that each rivet tightened, each panel fitted, and each engine mounted was a contribution to victory. The factory became a place where ordinary people accomplished extraordinary feats. Innovation became the lifeblood of Willow Run. Engineers and supervisors constantly experimented with assembly techniques, looking for ways to shave minutes off production time without sacrificing quality. Conveyor belts were redesigned, tools optimized, and workstations reorganized so that every movement was efficient. The factory floor became a laboratory for industrial creativity, a place where human skill and mechanical precision merged. Workers developed a sense of ownership over the planes they built, understanding that their effort directly impacted missions over Berlin, Ploesti, and beyond. The presence of women like Rose challenged old assumptions about who could contribute to heavy industry. Their determination, strength, and adaptability proved that skill could not be measured by gender. Supervisors began to see women as essential to the production miracle. Training programs were developed, mentorships formed, and a culture of collaboration emerged. The factory, once dominated by men, became a testament to the collective power of a diverse workforce united by a common goal. Every day at Willow Run was a lesson in perseverance. Engines roared as they were tested, fuselages moved along the line, and completed aircraft rolled out of the massive doors. The sound was both mechanical and human, a symphony of effort and innovation. Behind the scenes, management wrestled with supply chains, schedules, and technical challenges, constantly balancing speed with precision. Each challenge solved brought the factory closer to its ultimate goal, producing one heavy bomber an hour, a pace that would soon astound the world. Beyond the technical achievements, the human story was the heart of Willow Run. The factory demonstrated what could be accomplished when ordinary people were given extraordinary responsibility. From mothers and daughters to farmers and factory veterans, every worker contributed to a larger purpose. The legend of Rosie the Riveter, immortalized in popular culture, was rooted in the real courage, skill, and determination of women like Will Monroe, whose daily work helped tip the balance of the war. By the end of 1943, Willow Run was no longer an experiment. It had become a machine for victory, fueled not only by steel and rivets, but by the determination of people who refused to fail. The factory floor hummed with a rhythm of progress, a testament to human ingenuity and collaboration. In every completed bomber, in every worker's hand, the spirit of the arsenal of democracy came alive. The story of Willow Run was no longer just about airplanes. It was about the courage, creativity, and perseverance of the people who made the impossible.
By 1944, Willow Run had transformed from a site of uncertainty into the beating heart of American aircraft production. What had once been farmland and sketches on napkins was now a sprawling factory humming with precision and purpose. Engineers and workers had refined the assembly line to a point that seemed impossible just 2 years earlier. The goal was audacious: produce one B-24 Liberator every hour. It was a challenge that no other nation had attempted, Yet every day the factory moved closer to turning ambition into reality. The production breakthroughs were staggering. Conveyor belts carried massive fuselages across the factory floor, while teams of specialists worked in perfect synchronization, installing engines, wings, and electronics with meticulous care. Even the smallest inefficiency was scrutinized and eliminated. Tools were redesigned, processes adjusted, and workflows optimized until the factory operated with a rhythm that rivaled the precision of the planes themselves. Each improvement, no matter how minor it seemed, added minutes or even hours to the overall efficiency of the line. The human element was just as remarkable as the machines. Workers moved with confidence and skill, each person understanding their role in a much larger system. Men and women who had once doubted their abilities now prided themselves on assembling aircraft that would fly deep into enemy territory. Will Monroe and thousands like her became mentors and leaders on the line, ensuring that new workers could step into their roles without slowing production. The culture of collaboration, innovation, and relentless determination turned a massive factory into a coordinated organism capable of feats no one had thought possible. By the middle of 1944, Willow Run had reached a historic milestone. The factory began consistently rolling out completed B-24 Liberators at an unprecedented pace, turning out one bomber every 63 minutes. Over 8,000 aircraft would eventually be produced at Willow Run, roughly half of all B-24s ever built. Each plane represented the combined effort of thousands of workers, countless innovations, and the unwavering vision of men like Edsel Ford and engineers like Charles Sorensen. The scale of production was staggering, and it sent a message to the world: American industry could achieve what seemed impossible. The impact of this production miracle extended far beyond the factory walls. These bombers became the backbone of Allied air campaigns, flying missions that would cripple German infrastructure, fuel supplies, and air defenses. From the daring attacks at Ploesti to coordinated strikes in Big Week, Willow Run-produced B-24s played a critical role in shifting the balance of the war. The factory's output was more than numbers. It was a strategic weapon, a physical embodiment of the arsenal of democracy in action. Even as the machines roared and the assembly line moved with precision, there were moments that captured the human spirit behind the production miracle. Workers cheered as a completed bomber rolled out of the final bay, knowing that their efforts would travel thousands of miles into enemy territory. Engineers observed as systems passed rigorous tests, each success a testament to innovation and perseverance. In every corner of Willow Run, the energy was electric, a mixture of pride, urgency, and the understanding that their work could change history. By the end of 1944, Willow Run had proven itself as more than a factory. It was a symbol of what America could accomplish when vision, innovation, and determination converged. The transformation from the early chaotic days of Will It Run to a bomber-per-hour triumph was complete. The industrial miracle that began on farmland in Michigan had become a decisive force in the Allied war effort. Every aircraft, every rivet, and every hour of labor contributed to a larger story, one where human ingenuity and American industry combined to shape the course of history. The planes that rolled off the Willow Run assembly line were more than machines. They were instruments of strategy, symbols of American resolve, and agents of change in a war that spanned continents. By 1944, B-24 Liberators from Willow Run were flying missions deep into enemy territory, escorted by P-51 Mustangs, striking at the heart of Germany's military and industrial power. Operations that had once seemed impossible were now being executed with the support of an industrial engine that no adversary could match.
Each aircraft carried not just bombs, but the hopes and determination of tens of thousands of workers who had built it, rivet by rivet. One of the most daring missions was Operation Tidal Wave, the attack on the oil refineries at Ploiești, Romania. These refineries fueled the German war machine, and their destruction was critical to crippling the enemy's capacity to fight. Willow Run's bombers took to the skies, flying long, dangerous missions under heavy anti-aircraft fire, delivering precision strikes that disrupted fuel production. Weeks later, the campaign known as Big Week saw coordinated attacks on Germany's aircraft factories, targeting fighter production and weakening the Luftwaffe. Each mission demonstrated the immense value of American industrial might, and each successful sortie reinforced the reality that Germany's defeat was becoming inevitable. Albert Speer, the German Minister of Armaments, later described the Allied bombing campaign as one of Germany's greatest lost battles. He understood that the problem was not only the skill of the air crews, but the sheer scale of American production. Factories like Willow Run were churning out bombers faster than Germany could replace its losses. Every plane that left the Michigan factory carried with it a combination of engineering innovation, labor dedication, and industrial planning that Germany simply could not match. The enemy could no longer rely on its own factories to sustain the war effort. The legacy of Willow Run extended beyond individual missions. Over 8,000 B-24 Liberators were built there, roughly half of all Liberators ever produced. These aircraft became the most produced heavy bombers in history, a testament to American ingenuity and determination. They flew thousands of missions from the Mediterranean to the European mainland, striking transportation hubs, fuel plants, and airfields, effectively crippling the infrastructure that sustained Germany's military. The factory's contribution was both quantitative and strategic, demonstrating how industrial output could directly influence the outcome of war. But Willow Run was more than statistics and military impact. It was a story of human achievement on an unprecedented scale. Engineers solved problems that had never existed before. Workers adapted to challenges that would have overwhelmed ordinary factories. And leaders like Edsel Ford overcame personal struggles to ensure that the project succeeded. The collaboration between visionaries, laborers, and military planners created a synergy that transformed raw materials into decisive power. Every rivet, every panel, and every completed bomber symbolized the triumph of American determination over adversity. As the war drew closer to its end, the significance of Willow Run became undeniable. Goering's earlier dismissals of American industry now seemed tragically short-sighted. What had begun as farmland in Michigan had become a factory that terrified Germany more than any battlefield. Willow Run demonstrated that industrial capacity could be as powerful a weapon as any artillery piece or fighter plane. It showed the world that a nation committed to ingenuity, discipline, and collaboration could change the course of history, and that the arsenal of democracy was not just a slogan, but a lived reality. The story of Willow Run endures as a testament to vision, innovation, and human courage. It is a story of how ordinary people working together turned ambition into action, and sketches on napkins into machines that helped defeat a global threat. The B-24s that soared from Willow Run carried not only bombs, but the hopes of a nation, proving that when industry and determination combine, even the impossible becomes possible. In the skies over Europe, those planes delivered more than destruction. They carried the weight of a country united in purpose, and the undeniable proof that America could and would rise to meet the greatest challenge of its time.